Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Foreign Takes. We're back after a little hiatus and a disastrous week for some teams. Boys, welcome back. How's it been the last 2 weeks?
Could have been better, man. Could have been better. It's not a good week to be, or good month to be a Liverpool fan, where they just threw away possibly two, or no, three different trophies possibly thrown away. Well,
All in the
two for
span of two
sure thrown
weeks.
away, and one also probably thrown away.
We might as well just jump right into it. KG, I think you had predicted, we were talking the last time was, so Liverpool crashed out of the Europa League against Atalanta. You did technically win, Big Lev, away from home, but were you expecting a better performance at Atalanta or not?
Out there,
Yes.
yeah, I didn't expect for us to turn it around, but I expected them to do better because that one goal came from a penalty, and then you would watch the game and it wasn't like anything. They looked so gassed. They were completely just devoid of energy, devoid of anything. All the other games Liverpool didn't win or lost or drew, they were just wasteful. But here there was nothing to even waste. It was just drought.
Was this you think, a result of the game that was sandwiched in between where you lost at home to Palace and it looked like it was unbelievable, right? I think anyone, KG and
Yeah.
I think we were chatting, you were chatting, like the number of chances that they had, you could replay that game 100 times, and there's no way Liverpool would lose it again, right? It was just one of those games that there's nothing you can do.
Well, it was one of those games, but it was the game that was coming because all year they've been like, "Oh, we're going behind, but we're the best at scoring those 90-minute goals. Oh, we fucked away 10 chances, but we scored two." That's not a sustainable way to play, and it has caught up. You would always It's a lot of averages, right? At some point, you're gonna have a game where you can't come back, and all your missed chances will actually turn into missed chances. So that's the annoying thing. It feels like they didn't train in finishing, they didn't train in getting better. So it was due. It was due. Like no Liverpool fan can complain about, oh, we were just unlucky.
What about today's game? I think so. Today they beat Fulham away 3-1. Today felt like it felt like a rebound, like clearing the air. But does it feel like you were ready for a big push, or was this just like Fulham being subpar, or does it look
No,
like the
I
prep?
think it's like it's two things. One is Fulham just being in that mode where they don't really have a lot to fight for. They're not in a relegation battle. They're not in a top four battle. They're just chilling. And for Liverpool, it was a bunch of people came back from injuries, so you'd still have that refreshed legs and energy. Like Jota scored, Gravenberch scored, Gakpo was good. So those players just making their impact.
Yeah, makes sense.
What are you feeling right now? Do you think it's Liverpool has a shot at the title still, or after the Crystal
Man, it's
Palace
it's it's
loss?
a it's 2 points, right? So it's really, if City draws one of their games, then it's all about uh, just like who's gonna slip up. But I'm just not hopeful.
Mm,
Two reasons: I'm not hopeful that Liverpool will win the remaining games just because they look so gassed,
mm.
and I'm not hopeful that City will slip up because now they're out of Champions League. They don't really have any distractions. Like YT and I could be just sitting there every weekend waiting for them to slip up, and it will never come.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does feel like that part of the season, right? Like they
yeah,
could
Yeah.
just be like, cool, we have nothing left to play for. Let's just win the title.
yeah. What about you, Whitey? How did you feel about Arsenal? They're also, and we skipped past technically. Arsenal lost because these two were a bit sad and crying, so they're like, I don't want to record today. We lost. We're out of the title race. And I was like, okay, welcome to my everyday mood. But we missed you, the
I
two
mean,
negative results, and then a win yesterday as well. How did you
yeah,
feel about that?
it was the most predictable thing in the world. Emery's coming back. It's a necessary part of the season. It's April, Arsenal's worst month, and I mean, we were chatting in our common WhatsApp group, but we have to take our chances. We always talk about, it's like one of those things, like anyone who follows football knows what's going to happen. You have 15 chances, your you don't take advantage when you're on top. Boom, they countered us. So I have to give props to Aston Villa. They played it perfectly and they destroyed us. They really, truly destroyed us. But I think the really disappointing one was actually the Bayern game, because I know you and I were disagreeing that the Bayern that showed up on Wednesday is not the Bayern from the Bundesliga. That was the Bayern we expected to show up at the beginning of the season, right? This was not the
I
Bayern that
would
has been depressed
disagree.
by Bayer
I mean,
I
Leverkusen.
would disagree.
I told you guys they would show up. I told you they would show up, but Arsenal also looked gassed. It
Yeah.
was like a
Yes,
mirror image of how Liverpool played on Thursday. I guess Liverpool's game was the mirror image because it was earlier, but
yes,
it just didn't look like they were ready to offer anything, and that's the
yes,
worst type of game to watch if you're a fan, because you're like, I just know there's nothing's gonna happen in here.
yes. I
Yeah,
think when I saw Mazraoui absolutely running through our team time and time again, the same player who has barely gotten any minutes and he's destroying us, and he was running past, just in terms of pure physicality and speed, past all of our players. It wasn't meant to be. You could see in the first 5 minutes they had more energy than us, but it was just disappointing because we gave them 3 goals. Like, props to them, they deserve to win. But in the home leg, we gifted them 2 goals. This game, Joshua Kimmich is playing right back. He makes a 50-meter run by himself into the box for a free header. It's like, what more are you possibly supposed to say in that
I
circumstance?
disagree with you that you think that Bayern, this is what we expected from Bayern the beginning of the season. That's the Bayern that showed up. But I want to touch upon that in the Champions League review that we're going to be doing and predicting who we see as our finalists. But in terms of Arsenal and their hopes for the title, how do you feel? I feel like that Aston Villa game is probably the game that when we were doing our predictions, Big Lev assumed that you're going to drop points. And Mr. Good Evening doesn't forget. You made a clown out of him and he came to punish you.
And he punished us quite bad. But I think it's like, as far as I think we still have a shot. The truth is, I don't think the title race is over. There's going to be a lot more twists and turns. I think all 3 teams will still drop points before now and the end of the season. Like, that's like generally. I think if you look at Arsenal, the problem for Arsenal is we're playing Chelsea, who Palmer is always dangerous. They could show up. We're playing Spurs away. You never know, right? They're fighting for the Champions League, especially now that England is not getting the 5th spot. So Spurs have to go all out for that Champions League.
I mean,
The
they
other
technically can get it if Aston Villa win and all the Spanish team don't go through. But
No,
yeah,
no, there's
it's
very little
Yeah,
virtually
chance,
impossible.
man.
yeah, but
Yeah,
Italian teams are essentially going to take it. So it's no, and then of course the worst thing is our second to last game is United, who that's going to be prepped before they go to the FA Cup final, which we'll
don't.
talk about later.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah, but it's one of those games.
The-
It's like the United always tend to show up at home against Arsenal. Like, something about it just happens. So it's like we have the worst run in by far. So it's very possible that we go ahead and clear it. But the truth is, where I think Liverpool and Arsenal fans will admit that we definitely don't have it in our favor. Like, if you did percentages wise, it's definitely in City's favor. So I'm still proud. I still think we should push all the way through, but really the lack of a 9 has showed itself at the end of the
Yep.
season. We talked about needing a 9, we talked about needing a 9, but Havertz has really carried us. He's done a good job.
No, bro,
Jesus has tried.
he hasn't done a good job. Okay, what Liverpool and Arsenal fans need to accept, and that I accepted, is that when the guy is not 100%, like, you want someone to succeed, but they're not really there. Maybe sometimes you're like, same Nunez and Havertz are the same story. We're like, oh yeah, he's doing so much, he's doing passing, but like, I'm done with Darwin, man. And I think it's the same with Havertz. It's like, can't rely on a person who's so just just can't rely on him to do a simple thing. And compare like Nunez and Havertz to Jota and what's the name? The guy who scored against Wolves yesterday.
Trossard.
Trossard. Yeah, like,
Yeah,
compare the
clinic.
chances they get and what kind of goals they score. And it's like, man, I'd rather take this any day than sometimes them scoring amazing goals and being athletic and being strong and being tall and fast. But no, like, I'm done, bro. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm with you.
the thing is with Nunes, he's still young. He still has the like. It's the ability of him to unlock it. It's more like he has all the keys. He just needs to pick the right lock. If he doesn't do it, he's gonna be one of those. Of if only he was able to get to that next level. With Havertz, he's not a striker. He's not an
He's
attacking
not.
Yeah.
midfielder. I don't know what he is. I don't know why they bought him. Like that 60 million could have been spent on Nico Jackson, and he would have had a better.
Oh my
He would have had
god,
a
well,
better.
bro, guy's so bad.
that can we admit he is the worst striker in the Premier League in terms of like all like full like an actual striker?
Yeah.
He's the
Let's
worst
talk
Yeah.
about
finisher.
it. Let's talk
Bro,
about it. Let's talk about the semifinal and the misses that he got. That was
it
hilarious.
was terrible. It's terrible. He's really bad. And remember when they scored that hat trick against Spurs? It was like the worst hat
Yeah,
trick ever.
yeah,
Dude,
I mean,
he's bad,
can we
and the
admit they
fact
didn't
is that
deserve?
Chelsea doesn't have leadership and they doesn't have a coaching. And I'm talking about him and it wasn't Madueke who were fighting with Palmer, and Palmer who's on a
yeah.
golden boot race. Man, they wouldn't give him penalty even though he's a designated penalty taker. Like, bro, for me that's like you're done. You're a shit striker, and then you do this thing. Like, you can't be both, controversial and shit. You're either good and controversial, or you're shit but a great trooper,
Yes,
Like
agreed. I mean,
McTominay. That's exactly what it is.
Bro, yeah.
but if you look at the game, though, it's unbelievable, right? Like Chelsea had the opportunity to beat City. Like we can all
Yes.
admit it. Like if
Exactly.
with a real striker, if it was any clinical striker besides Jackson, we would not be talking about City having the option of two more cups or like leagues for this year.
City was abysmal. I don't know how Chelsea didn't bury them. I mean, obviously they were abysmal. They came off of the Champions League game when they were playing 120 minutes, and Chelsea were more crisp.
I mean,
They
they
could
were.
have buried them. They should have
I
buried
think
them.
they're tired because they played what on
They're-
Tuesday,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
That's also
then they
120
played.
minutes.
Yeah, but if you're Chelsea though, I have to give some credit to Poch. I know we've been criticizing him a lot, but I'm curious for your take. It's almost like a lot of he's been doing a pretty good job for a lot of these games. Like the setup was obviously correct in this game, right? But there's
Yeah.
only so much you can do when your number 9 misses 5 or 6 chances. When your winger is fighting, like I feel like Poch has actually done an okay job because now we're really seeing the weakness of the players. Like no matter how good the system is, if the player cannot fulfill the role, there's not the system will fail, right? So
I
I feel
mean,
like mixed bag here, but Poch is now getting over criticized because how can you criticize him for this game when his players are doing this ridiculousness?
the question should be not for Poch. The question should be more for the people who bought Nico Jackson, because that money could have been spent on a different striker in a different area. Or they could have. They spent what? They spent 30 million on him, I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
They could have put another 20 on top and got Benjamin Sesko or Sasha Kalicic, whoever who plays in Wolves. And they could have had a striker who's a similar, very young, athletic, can play up top overnight. Just a little bit more money. They went for the cheapest version of a cheaper version of a striker, and they got what they deserve. If it was any other striker up top there, any Premier League pros, like if they had Callum Wilson,
Oh,
they're in the final of the FA Cup. That's
absolutely.
no
And
question.
they're probably fighting for top 4 because right, the number of times he's caused them to have issues.
But on the
Just
opposite side of it, it was City. What did you think of the City in the FA Cup semifinals?
it was very disappointing, but I think it was kind of understandable. Like we mentioned earlier, they did seem tired, but frankly, they were outplayed, outgunned. But they just Chelsea couldn't bury them. But if you're looking at City, it has to be honest. It seems like a disappointing week for them. Like the way they crashed out of the Champions League, and then the performance that they put in yesterday. It seems like they're definitely slowing down. But we've said that so many times year after year where we say they look like they're slowing down. They go on a 5-run winning streak. But I'm hoping this year it's actually caught up to them and that they lose 1 or 2 games. But I'm curious if you think they'll go on an unbeaten run or not.
I think they're going to go on an unbeaten run and win it. They have nothing else to fight for. That's kind of like their only thing is
It's
the
not
Premier
about
League.
the unbeaten run though. They can go on an unbeaten run all they want if they draw 2 games. That winning run, right? We don't want them going
Yeah,
on a
that's
winning
true.
run.
That's a
but
good point.
they probably will.
I still think that the points, what I predicted for City to happen is, I believe in that. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I just didn't expect Liverpool to lose a game against Crystal Palace. I was expecting them to drop points against Fulham and against West Ham away or Everton away, because that's the teams that would need points. But since they lost to Crystal Palace, it's kind of the ball is in City's playground, so to say.
Yeah.
So I think they're gonna run away with it because you guys lost points where you shouldn't have.
I mean, speaking of the FA Cup, we might as well just move on to today's game. So it was Coventry v Man United. KG, I know we were chatting earlier, and you haven't had too much time to cool off. But what are your overall thoughts about today's game?
Ten Hag needs to be sacked. That's my overall thought. That's my overall thought. That's a conclusion that I came to. I was very hesitant to come to this conclusion, but today, this conclusion just, it's the only answer you can have right there. You cannot go for, against Coventry being 3-0 up to lose 3-3. I mean, to go 3-3 and to the penalties against the championship level team. You were 3-0 up in the first half and ended up 3-3. This is on the manager. It's
Right.
there's not anyone else. Like, this is, if other games you can go like he didn't have the right players, or the players did this, the players down tools. That usually happens when you're like 1-0 down and then you can't get into the game. No, when you're 3-0 up and then you do questionable substitutions, taking away a defensive midfielder, putting McTominay in defense. I can't even. He needs to be sacked. I have a question for you, both of you. Name me a player who can be basically an attacking midfielder who crashes the box and scores goals, and be a defensive midfielder at the same time. Name me a player ever in history who's ever been successful in doing that.
The only one might have been Yaya Toure, but at least he was competent at both.
No, yeah, I'm talking about, at the same time. Have you ever met a player who can be like a crashing the box? He can play in the game like, oh, I'm playing as a number 10.
Gerard at this when Benitez first came, and even before it, like when he was still young in his career, he would sometimes be number 10, and sometimes just box to box. They even put him at like right back at one point in one game, but he could do that pretty well. Like not obviously as well as every other position. For example, I think peak Gerard was when he was put in number 10 right behind Torres. Like that was just amazing. Those 2-3 years. But yeah, Toure was a good shout out.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah. So I'm asking you: do you think Scott McTominay falls in that line? That's my question for you. That's the simple. That's the only person, and people would defend him to the death. You can't say online. People will be like, "He's your top goal scorer. Why are you so criticizing him so much?" You can't have a player who's an attacking midfielder, and then when you sub out the only normal defensive midfielder that you can have with all the injuries and all that, I'm talking about Kobe Main. You sub them out, and you go like, "Here's an idea. Scott McTominay is going to be playing defensive midfielder for the rest of the game, and that's going to be a-okay." It's not like it's the 90th plus whatever 89th minute, you're 10 men down, and like someone needs to slot in, and Scott McTominay does the dirty job. Like, it's similar to like a goalkeeper getting a red and John O'Shea going goal. Like, it's not a similar thing. It's his constant thing is like, where do you play Scott McTominay? Oh, he's a defensive midfielder. Oh, he's an attacking midfielder. Oh, he can play at centre back, but he's shit on all of those positions.
There's
Not good
only
at
one
any of those
position Scott
positions.
McTominay can play. It's a super sub attacking midfielder that's crushing the box, and that's why he works.
Yes.
He has all these goals, but why it doesn't work when you start him with Fernandes is because you have two guys who are not doing anything in a midfield, who just like, at least Fernandes has that like passing ability. This guy is just there to crash the box.
And taking the space of
exactly.
Højlund, who's
And
already
it can
in the
work
right
when
space.
you're on a back, like when the other team is kind of on a defensive foot, and you can have that like you recycle the ball in midfield already because they gave you the initiative, but it doesn't work when you start the game and you kind of have to get that initiative by yourself.
Yeah.
So I agree with all of those points, and that on top of that, it's like you're 3-0 up, you do this, and then one goal comes in. Second goal obviously was a free goal, it was a deflection that nobody could do anything about. Then you get a penalty on the last minute. And then on top of that, VAR that fourth goal should have stood. Honestly,
Agreed.
I know it's offside, but like, let's be honest, United has been shit throughout the whole game. They threw the game down, made all the substitutions. He was so cocky that he's 3-0 up. He made the substitutions too early. He always does it. It's always on the manager. This is an example of why it's on the manager. People can defend, oh, he didn't have enough players, he didn't have a proper starting 11. No, like, you were 3-0 up, you did the wrong substitutions, and you let the other team come back. And if you look at the opposite side, Coventry, they did the opposite thing of where you can say that the manager did a good job and he should have a paycheck tomorrow because he started with 5 at the back, made a wrong call of starting at 5 at the back. They conceded 3. What he did is, in starting at halftime, he did all the right substitutions to go with four at the back, changed the formation. They got one goal in, and they felt it. They felt that there's the United are they're uncomfortable on the ball. There's space in the midfield, and they went for it, and they almost got the win. And I feel sorry for them. And on top of that, in the beginning of the first half, when it was 1-0 or 2-0, I saw United. They didn't get as much shots as they usually get on their target, like at their goal, but it's mostly was due to Coventry not being set up correctly. Even when they had a chance to run away, they just didn't have enough players. Like they just didn't go at United. But there were a couple of times when they almost ran away, and there was a huge gap again in midfield. With
Yep.
it wasn't like the United set up correctly in the beginning and that they did wrong substitutions. Coventry was set up incorrectly. If they were set up with four at the back from the beginning and went at it, United wouldn't have been in the final even. They wouldn't even have the 3-0 cushion.
Agreed.
So Ten Hag needs to be sacked, and the FA Cup finals, I have no hope whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is like I don't think it would have mattered too much if it's Coventry or United. I think everyone now is just expecting City to take the FA Cup, right? Is that a fair assumption to make now?
That's a fair assumption to me. I don't think any like all the United fans are not going to be believing in it until May 25th when it's game day. Like obviously you're going to be like, oh, there's a glimmer of hope. Hopefully some players are going to be back and all that, but after this game, everyone goes like, why even bother going to the final? Because now who goes down from 3-0 to 3-3 and almost losing it on the last minute of extra time? Like
Yeah, it's
that's
wild.
wild, and it's all on the manager.
Okay,
Yeah,
can I ask you a question? So I have a
yeah,
question about some of your midfielders. So I think we all know about McTominay, like he's completely useless, but I think someone who doesn't get as much criticism as he deserves is Casemiro, right? I
yeah.
think this entire year, if we've learned anything, is that Casemiro does not have the legs to keep up in such a fast-paced league. Even when he's in the right position, you can see they'll just knock it past him, and he's always going for these dangerous fouls and tricks. But if he's still there, if you come into next season with the same midfield, it's going to be a disaster, right?
No,
Can
no.
we agree on that?
Casemiro's gone. He has no. I think he has 1 year left on his contract, and it's not going to get extended. And even if he will stay, he probably was going to be on the bench. Varane is also gone, but I would rather keep Varane than Casemiro, honestly, as a backup. And he gets injured a lot all the time. If he can get a pay cut, but I don't think he's getting a pay cut. His contract runs out at the end of the summer. And I agree. I think Casemiro got gassed, and he is too old already to play at this level. It was a great sale by Real Madrid, and he would have been amazing for Sir Alex Ferguson when it was his last hurrah. If he needed defensive, he's a Van Persie-esque signing, but a Van
Yeah, the
Persie-esque
last
signing
piece of the
for
puzzle.
a team. The last piece of the puzzle for 1 year, but it was the last piece of the puzzle for 1 year for United to go finish third and win the EFL Cup, and then
Yeah,
slowly go down. But in general, I think for United, this season is, there's an overachievement, and this is an epic underachievement. Like they should be performing a bit better than this. This is something out of the ordinary with all the injuries and all that. So next season, I expect them to not to be competing for the title, but to be at least fourth. That's where the squad should be finishing. It's just they're completely underperforming, like over the mark, and it's either due to the manager, either due to the amount of games that's played with the World Cup, or due to the fact that the players are just tired.
yeah, very very fair. Let's just quickly switch over to the Bundesliga. So Bayer Leverkusen have obviously clinched the title, and I think we can all agree very deservedly so. And they are actually today they drew against Dortmund away in the 98th minute, essentially with the last kick of the ball. So the real question to you guys is: do we think Leverkusen can go unbeaten for the entire season? They have 8 more games left at this stage. That means like FA Cup, not FA Cup, excuse me, the DFB Pokal Cup, the Europa League, and the last couple of games of the Bundesliga.
I think they will go
Yes,
unbeaten
they
everywhere
they
apart from the Europa League.
Ooh,
yeah,
They're playing
exactly,
against Roma,
exactly.
aren't they?
yeah, they're playing against Roma. But
Now,
Roma have been resurgent, right? Ever since
yeah,
De Rossi came back, like he's actually playing attractive football using the strikers that he has.
Okay.
So
Well,
we're still
here's
going with Leverkusen is
here's a
going to take it.
clarifying question for you. If, for example, they lose to Roma on penalties, does that count as going unbeaten? Because technically, you didn't lose the game. Like but you still
Yeah,
don't.
leaving the technicality aside, I would consider that a loss. I
Okay,
know it's not technically a loss, but I'm like they have to win. Essentially, like they have to win the Europa League, the Pokal Cup, and be
so
unbeaten
then no, then I don't think they're
I
going
think
Bundesliga.
that
all out in every competition. They're gonna slip up, and most likely in Europa League.
yeah,
Oh,
I
interesting.
would think so too. I think if they slip up, they slip up in the Europa League. One of the semifinals, they win the first game 3-0, and then the semifinal they lose
Yeah,
1-0, something like that. I still think they're going to go to the final. Um, I think they're playing against
yeah,
Kaiserslautern in the FIBA Pokal.
Yeah, they
Kaiserslautern
take that.
it's any cakewalk. I think the league
yeah.
they're going unbeaten. I think sorry Arsenal, this is going to be the best unbeaten
Oh, valid.
in
If
most
they do
cases.
Yeah.
this, they deserve it. Like if they do, I think the big thing is it just seems like good for them, right? It's like you can't really criticize it too much. I know, despite their Karabakh the way they passed, but it's like
Oh, that's
they're-
no. That's why they don't get the Europa League. That's why they don't get the Europa League. The injustice. Karabakh went to them toe to toe, and they should have been through. They were 2-1 up. That red card is the worst call I've seen this season. That's number one worst call I've seen this season in Europe. In the Premier League,
yeah.
it's obviously Liverpool's
Oh yeah, yeah.
disallowed goal. You
Oh
can't
yeah.
forget that. Yeah,
I
yeah,
know. I guess the question then is like, say, okay, we're at the end of the season. They take the Bundesliga, they take Pokal. Regardless, Europa League. Let's just say they lose in the semifinal or so on. But essentially, that's
Yeah.
an amazing season, right? We all agree it's like for a coach in his first year with this team. What's the expectations moving into next year? The team's obviously going to stay together. I think, except for Frimpong, who has a release clause.
Well, wait. Why
What
do you
what
say
what
the
is
team
what
is
is
obviously
next
gonna
after
stay
this?
together? I don't believe that to be.
Well,
I don't
they've
know, man.
essentially.
Every other
Yeah,
team that has
who's gonna
done like
leave?
every other team that's been like this, so a team that's usually doesn't win a lot, but strong team, but has like a lot got its shit together, usually got picked apart. Whether it's Dortmund,
That
Ajax,
that's
yeah.
true, except no. But the difference here is A, Leverkusen have the money, and I think B, it seems like they want to run it back. Like Florian Wirtz is obviously the most important. He already has come out publicly and has this dad whose agent said we're coming back. Essentially, the only unknown player, whether they're going to come back or not, is Jeremy Frimpong. The rest of them have all claimed they're going to stay.
I agree with YT because I think that's the reason. Probably that's the assurance that Alonso would want if he stayed for another year. If his assurance was that not assurance, but if his
Escher.
perspective was yes, was that they're gonna sell players and they're gonna try to rebuild again, he will be gone. He will go to Liverpool because it's the same job ever again. And then there's also rumors that not the rumors, but the president of Leverkusen said that Xabi wants to go to Madrid. So I think they're gonna get another shot at the Champions League with this squad, and then they'll start selling. Unless it's like, or if they sell one player, they'll get two in the
Yeah.
ones that Xabi Alonso wants. But he's not gonna sell 5 or 6 players. It's
Oh
probably
yeah.
sell two, bring three, and type of situation.
But next year
Uh,
is essentially a free hit for them, right? Like the entire
yeah,
squad plus Xabi Alonso. It's like regardless, everyone knows there's nothing. They can't make a
Yeah.
repeat of this year, right? So it doesn't matter where really they land unless they're crashing way down. I feel like they have a free hit next year,
But
so
then,
they're
it's
gonna
a
play with
isn't that
kind.
like a
big
dangerous
gamble.
position to be in? Like you're not like
Yeah,
really.
it's a big
How do you
gamble.
like motivate people? Um, I feel like it could easily go into everyone's motivated just to showcase themselves so they can be sold the summer afterwards.
Yes, yes, and it's a big gamble. So if they, for example, they don't play as well, like if they're not in the top four of Bundesliga, I know the top four usually doesn't
Yeah.
decide the Champions League, but like as a nominal thing, if they're not in the top four competing, and if they crash out of the Champions League group stages, it gives power to the teams that want those players next summer, not this summer, but next summer, to negotiate and go and hey, last year you valued Wirtz for 100 million, but in this season if he doesn't put up the same numbers, you see he doesn't do well in the Champions League. We're a team with it. Let's say if it's Arsenal who comes in and they go, we always play in the Champions League. We need an attacking midfielder. We're taking a big gamble here because Wirtz is not. He played in the Champions League. He didn't do that well. So instead of 100 million, we're going to pay you 60. Or we're going to pay you 70, something like that. So we'll take the price tag down rather than up. It's a gamble from a club's perspective because Xabi Alonso is going to be gone in a year's time,
Yeah,
anyways, and they better depends on what they want to go in terms of a 5 year strategy. They want to
yeah,
cash in now and reinvest, or they're fine with what they have because they can
yeah.
lose money out on it.
They're making bank this year, right? It's like between the winning and the Europa League, and knowing that they have guaranteed money next year gives them a big buffer, like Champions League money. But it's going to
Yep.
be interesting to watch, right? I think also if you're Real Madrid in many ways, this is actually good for you, right? Because you're about to see Xabi Alonso practice
Yeah.
other skills. Because all he knows this year is winning. So next year, when they start losing, they have a couple games, they start arguing. It's like more experience for him to like basically become a better manager. So Real
And
Madrid wins one way or another.
Real Madrid always wins. That's the
That's
one thing
true.
that you know. Real Madrid always wins. It's a good thing that they can make a decision post Ancelotti. If Xabi Alonso is a fluke, they're gonna avoid the fluke. They're not getting it
Yeah.
right now.
I think that's a good place to transition to Champions League, actually. So I think this was one of the craziest weeks of Champions League. So we already talked about Bayern uh, and Arsenal. So I just wanted to quickly touch on the other games. So Dortmund overcame their initial loss. So they beat Atletico Madrid 4-2 at home. So the aggregate was 5-4. Did anybody expect this? This was unbelievable, right?
I don't think it was
I didn't
unbelievable
expect it. It
though.
was
Like
unbelievable.
Atletico are not as strong as they used to be, even defensively. Like it's not that slog, but I would have thought they would have closed it out. But good on Dortmund.
Yeah, it's deserved, but I didn't expect it to be that. I thought it was mostly the case of Atletico Madrid is a much more solid team as a unit in comparison to Dortmund. Dortmund aren't even competing in the Bundesliga, so I thought they're a solid. Like they kicked out our favorites and YT's favorites, up Inter Milan, which are flying in Serie A still. They're winning the Serie A. We're not even talking about Serie A anymore because it's boring. Because Inter
Yeah.
Milan wins it by 1 or 2 goals all the time, and there's nothing to talk about. And yeah, they kicked out Inter Milan. They looked a much more solid squad. So it seemed like Borussia Dortmund was just falling apart. But at home, they were able to showcase their best and go through.
But I think the one thing that we I think all recognized is that Dortmund cannot keep a clean sheet. Like defensively,
Yeah,
they are suspect, right? It's like they can score goals going forward, but this entire playing out from the back, they will always give you 1 or 2 goals essentially gifted.
yeah.
Which is interesting because the other side of the draw was Barcelona v PSG. Araujo essentially screwed Barcelona, got the worst red card you could imagine, and PSG just went on a absolute route. So they passed 4-6 on aggregate. So
So bad.
the
What
game,
did you think? Not I
oh,
thought the PSG. PSG needed one Barcelona to lose a man to be able to take the game to them. Like
agreed.
without when it was 11v11, Barcelona were cruising. They were in the semifinals, and the crazy thing is knowing that if Dortmund was going through, Barca could have been in the final, and it's just crazy to think because they are not great this year, and they were just one mistake away from the final.
Yeah, I mean, if you're PSG and Mbappe, it's almost like a storyline just got written for you, right? It's his last year. He's about to go to Real Madrid, and he's about to face a Dortmund team that cannot defend for the life of them. That will give him space in the back. That will try to attack and give him running area. It's almost like it's teed up for PSG to go all the way to the final. I think on that side, it's Dortmund v PSG. Do you guys what would you say? Like to me, it seems like Dortmund have what 20% chance, and it's PSG 80% chance. If
Yeah,
you
it's
ask,
probably.
I agree with you.
This is like the closest, weirdly, PSG can come to actually winning it because they should be able to beat Dortmund, right? And then in the final, you're
Yeah,
not really Real and Bayern. They're both good teams, and in the final, they'll be tough. But it's not like they're gonna be very, very clearly better. It's
it's
one
one
game,
game.
yeah,
Also, final, you
yeah,
never know, right? As opposed to
yeah.
two legs. What about Bayern and Real Madrid? I'm curious because I think we were chatting. KG, you said you had some thoughts about this matchup between Bayern and Madrid.
to talk about Bayern and Madrid, we need to talk about first City and Real Madrid. And Real Madrid, never discount Real Madrid. I told you that before. I said my favorites are Inter Milan, but if it's not Inter Milan, you never discount Real Madrid. And that's what they did. It was an amazing game against City. It was an equal game. City got.
Yes.
Real Madrid can win you in different ways. You want the counter-attacking football, they'll play counter-attacking football. You want to sit defensively, you're gonna sit. They're gonna sit back, absorb all the pressure, and beat you on penalties. I was happy to see City go out because Boldfront doesn't deserve an easy route, and he didn't get an easy route, and he couldn't go through. So kudos, and I think my hot take here is that Carlo Ancelotti is the greatest manager to currently manage in football.
Uh,
That is a take. I will give you that. Better than Guardiola.
He can have two statues in two different cities, and it will be totally valid.
I mean,
Everyone
Guardiola's
forgets
gonna have
Milan.
two
He
stadiums
won
from two different
two.
cities too.
Yeah, there's gonna be a small one in Manchester, because so all of their fans can come in because they don't need to queue, so it's easier because they have so many fans. Ancelotti has a he will have to. People forget he before he was in Real Madrid. He was the coach for Milan. Just Milan's legacy is a little bit erased, a little bit forgotten. Their fans are not as vocal anymore. He was the Italian guy for Milan. He won two Champions Leagues with AC Milan, and he went into one final which he lost famously to Liverpool, and he built up an amazing historical Milan team, which is one of the greatest. Like it's the Barcelona's, the Manchester United's, the Arsenal's Invincibles, and the Milan of 2005 till 2008. That is one of the greatest Milan ever. That just not is not
2003,
remembered,
2008, bro.
but it is. 2003, 2008. Yeah. The Kakas, the
Yeah,
Gattusos, the Zaydors, the Maldinis, the Nestas.
but he didn't build that
Incredible.
though.
Fact,
It was the
he was the manager
yeah,
who, yeah, he didn't bring in Nesta and Maldini, but he brought in Zaydorov, who was out
yeah.
of Real Madrid, who nobody wanted, and he built them. He built bring out Gattuso, found Kaka, brought Shevchenko in from Dynamo Kiev, built him up. And now he's in Real Madrid. When if he wins this Champions League, it's going to be his third Champions League with Real Madrid. He is the greatest manager to ever coach as of right now. Better than Guardiola, better than Klopp, better than whoever you talk about. He wins if he wins this Champions League. That's even more solidifying his opinion.
I don't
You know this. So
disagree. I don't
my initial.
disagree, but I think he would only be as good for specific teams. So I don't think he'd be as good as a manager of Arsenal or manager of Liverpool.
I disagree. I think he came into the Premier League. He won with Chelsea.
Yeah, but
He
so
went to
he's
Bayern.
also like
He
needs a lot
won
of
everything.
he also needs a lot of resources. Like at Milan, he didn't have to worry about. He was bankrolled by their mafiosi prime minister.
I don't think they were the top spenders. I don't think they were top spenders. Maybe in the league they were competing with Juventus, but I don't think they were
They
top
didn't
spenders.
spend a lot,
No,
but they
You can
spent
make
that's
an
big
argument.
amounts on the right players. They were good spenders, but they were
yeah.
not money shy. And at that point, Italian
And
football
But
had
I
a
now
lot
think
it's
of
like,
money.
again, I'm saying that he's the greatest manager to ever go based on the results. Who would you name the greatest manager? If that's your argument, if you
No,
can't
I'm not
spend, who
saying
would
he's
be your
not the
greatest manager?
greatest, but
Klopp?
like in
Yeah.
some instances, he wouldn't be as good, and that's fine. Like
He
Yeah.
Klopp
wasn't
wouldn't
as
be
good. He wasn't as
Klopp
good at
probably wouldn't
Everton.
be as
Yeah, he wasn't as good
successful
at Everton.
in Real Madrid.
I think
I
he
don't
would
know,
be.
man.
I think Klopp under in if he was bankrolled, he would be successful. He would just get the players he wants, and he would build up to. But I still think that Ancelotti is the greatest manager.
You know this. I think it's not a bad take. I think it's a. I don't think it's controversial. I think he's genuinely
Yeah.
has a shout. I think that's it. I think the thing that goes against him is that his flexibility. Like if someone asks you what is Ancelotti's like style, play style, or anything, there's no particular style, right? That is what Ancelotti is. He's the most flexible manager you could imagine, and his style is winning. And I think
Yeah,
that's where the agreement is with you, KG, is that all he does is win. The way he wins doesn't matter. He will do whatever it takes and flex, as opposed to, if someone asks about Klopp, it's like heavy metal, gegenpressing, like very high energy. Klopp,
yeah.
Guardiola, a lot of possession, finding ways to do that. So I think that is both a pro and a con against Ancelotti. But to be honest, I wouldn't disagree with it necessarily. I think like he's amazing. Like that's the thing. He's cold blooded.
I think his stature gets forgotten in the modern day of football just because he manages Madrid, and it's kind of a given. People go, "Oh, it's Madrid; they always win." But he was the one who he broke that curse from Madrid
Yes.
10 years ago, 11 years ago, when they won their first Champions League, and which followed another 5 or 6 wins of the Champions League. They weren't able to win it for 20 years, for 10 years, 15 years. He was the first one to do it, and now everyone goes, "Oh, it's Madrid. They always win. It's their competition." But he
No,
made
absolutely not.
everyone remember that it's their competition. So I think his name is taken for granted as if it's like, oh, he's just the coach of Real Madrid. But you can't do it anymore to Barcelona because they don't have Messi and they're bankrupt. And suddenly, whenever there's a Barcelona coach, he's not the greatest manager. But before that, it was when it was Valverde's, when not Valverde's, what was the, or it was Valverde, it was one manager
Yeah.
after Pep Guardiola, the Valverde's, Luis Enrique's. When Barcelona was flying, everyone was going, "Oh, he's one of the best managers ever in the world because he's
No.
managing Barcelona." But
Yeah.
that's not
He's
always
his
the
book.
case, isn't
I
it?
guess then going back to the Bayern Madrid matchup, though, what do you guys expect to happen? Are we thinking that Madrid has a slight advantage here, or do we think that
Slight.
Bayern? I guess that's what I'm asking. Or do we think Bayern will show up?
Oh, I think Madrid's wins them. They go through. That's no brainer. Like I think never bet against Madrid. I told you.
No, I
So
think
really, are we saying
I,
that we're looking at a PSG?
no, I'm gonna bet against Madrid. I think Bayern, this is their last thing they have to fight for, and they can probably muster themselves for 2 games, man. Don't discount Harry Kane.
See why I think.
He's desperate
See,
to,
the reason why
break his fucking curse, bro. I told you they would show up against Arsenal. They'll show up again.
Yeah.
Fair
So
enough.
the reason why I disagree with you, Whitey, before when you mentioned that Bayern showed up, because you said that they're the ones that you expected them at the start of the season. I don't think that that's what we expected from Bayern at the start of the season. If we expected the Bayern at the start of the season to be what we thought they're gonna be, I think Arsenal would have went through because they wouldn't sit deep. They wouldn't absorb the pressure and attack. It's never Bayern were never a counter-attacking team. They were mostly a team that goes in and dominates and scores. And if they did that against Arsenal, Arsenal probably would have been able to
Oh
score
yeah,
past, and
yeah,
it probably would have an unexpected. They would have been a dark horse in this tie. But because they, like what Bigelow said, they showed up and they played defensively. They overcame you because you without a striker you can't unlock the low block.
yeah. So that's the thing. I think that's why I think they actually have a higher chance against Madrid. Is he seems more flexible in the Champions League this year, Tuchel. So it seems like it's two teams who are flexible. So I think that's what makes it interesting, right? We don't actually know what to expect going into this leg. It's going to be two tactically flexible teams. It's just about whose individual brilliance and whose tweak will be the better tweak. Honestly speaking, but I think I'm
So
with you, KJ.
do your what's it called, the semifinal finals bracket.
I
Borussia
mean,
versus PSG,
PSG. I think we can all say PSG, right?
Real Madrid versus Bayern,
Madrid.
PSG versus Real Madrid. Who you're putting your money on?
I know. So this is the difficulty because something in me says this is going to be an Mbappe World Cup final performance from him because he's going to be motivated beyond belief. And the truth is, who's Madrid going to put on him defensively? Rudiger is the only one who knows how to defend. The others are okay, but no one has the pace. So, oh, you put me in a trouble. I think I will say 51% Real Madrid, 49% Mbappe. I think for the
Okay,
final.
Uh-huh.
You?
that's an epic call.
Dude, Mbappe's gonna score a
Big Lev,
hat-trick,
what about you?
win the Champions League for PSG, and feel like, oh, this feels so much better than winning it with Real. I better go to Arsenal now. Is there a prop bet I can make with
Listen,
that?
that's that's 1 to 1,000,000, the best bet you can do. I would love
I
if
You
mean,
that
just
happened.
logically,
you just
if it
tipped
was
the
just
scale for
logically,
YT there.
I
He's
would
like,
just go with Real for sure. But I don't know.
yeah,
I feel like this is maybe Bayern's year. Just want to see something different, man. Fuck this every
interesting.
year. There's every other year Real Madrid winning it. Annoying as
Yeah,
fuck.
Yeah,
it is getting boring. What
I
about you,
think
KG?
logically, I think it's Real Madrid, but there usually is one upset in every game week
Yep.
in the Champions League. There's never like, oh, everything
Yeah,
that you expected happens. So if there would be an upset, I would think the upset would come from Bayern side. So I think Bayern can go through if there would be an upset.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't think Bayern can beat PSG in the final.
No,
I think
I agree.
Mbappe is winning it then.
Yeah.
But I think if it's PSG versus Madrid, Madrid's walking away with it. Good story for Mbappe being like, "Hey, I went twice to the final with you, couldn't win it. I'm going to Madrid, and then he's gonna win it in the next 2 or 3 years,
bro, that
Yeah.
is not a
unless
good
unless
story from
they
Mbappe. That's a
avoid the
shit story
develop.
from Mbappe. It, yeah, it means
Well,
he
it is,
couldn't. He
but at
couldn't.
least he
Yeah,
can
he
say he
tried,
tried.
but he couldn't get it
He can
done.
say he
That's
tried
like,
exactly.
when we're talking the goat conversation is out. You know who couldn't
Fair
get
enough.
it done, but eventually got it done? LeBron, bro.
With
Oh my
Cleveland, he's
goodness.
gonna come back in 10 years and win PSG.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah,
ridiculous. I think this is the thing though. The final is just freaking Mbappe is just such a question mark, right, for PSG. Like we've seen what he did to Argentina. That's the problem. Like he can do something so
But in
magical.
Argentina, he had a French team beside him. Like you're just discounting the whole French team and comparing it to PSG. PSG has
No,
a
no,
bunch of
fair.
kids.
Yeah, kids. But the thing is, he's still able to do things by himself. Like he can literally create
And
nothing.
Donnarumma, who can't play with his feet.
Oh, he's terrible. I have to say,
Yeah.
Donnarumma is one of the best. Okay,
You
just leaving
forget.
this.
You just fixate on Mbappe and you go like,
I
"This is."
know, but that's he has such a gravity to him. That's the big reason.
They needed Araujo to get a red card and to pass Barcelona. People forget that, and Barcelona are not great themselves.
No,
You know, they're
agree.
like
But it's a
so.
final. The thing is, it's one single game. If it was two legs, I would agree with you. I would have absolutely said Madrid advantage. But because, you never know. In a single final, someone gets nervous, someone slips, someone gets injured. That's why. I think let's quickly touch on Europa League instead. We had touched upon it earlier. So the semifinals are kind of wild, to be honest. It's Marseille versus Atalanta on one side, and then Roma Leverkusen. So I figured we'll just quickly do brackets to touch on. So KG, let's just start with you in reverse order. Marseille, Atalanta. Who are you taking?
Atalanta,
Oh, interesting.
Atalanta,
Roma, Leverkusen.
Leverkusen.
Oh, and then final would be Atalanta versus Leverkusen.
I think Leverkusen is going to win it on minimal margins.
Yeah, I would.
Um,
Interesting. Big Lev, Marseille, Atalanta.
Atalanta.
Yeah, Roma, Leverkusen.
It's kind of I also think Leverkusen. Well,
And
yeah,
then the
Leverkusen
final.
for sure.
Yeah, I
mhm.
have the same thing. It's just,
Uh,
it's just, I can't see who's gonna beat Leverkusen, right? They just seem too strong relative to the other three
Roma's
teams.
the only team who can actually beat them, but I think Roma's this De Rossi, your new tactics and all that. It would seem like this would be the logical end to
Yeah,
that story.
yeah,
And De
deservedly.
Rossi,
Also, outside of that one game where they,
and he should get a contract for next season and stay and see what he can do. So it's a great. I think it's going to be a win-win-win-win for everyone.
yeah, for literally, I mean, you have to give him credit, right? Especially, I think it actually makes Mourinho looks bad how De Rossi has been able to forget the team and the spirit and stuff. Tactically speaking, they look so much better compared to when Mourinho was around.
Oh
So
yeah, 100%.
he's actually attacking football with your six strikers. I don't know, it seems. And so just before we wrap up, I had a question for our foreign take of the week. So who is for your worst goalie signing of all time, like within the Premier League? So I think the contenders are Kepa with Chelsea, and then Onana with Man United this year. So I know Onana has come back slightly, but he basically caused United to fail, and then there was Kepa. So I'm curious for you guys. It's like who was a worse, and they were both big money signings. I think is the thing to add. I think Onana was 50 and Kepa was 70. So
So
who
out
would
of
you
the
say was
two,
the worst? Yeah, out of the two, who was a worse signing?
out of two,
Kepa.
yeah, Kepa. But I feel like maybe we're in a
Oh
recency bias. Like I'm sure there were like others,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Taibi played for United, came in, made one mistake, and they benched him forever. It's when they were searching for
No.
Schmeichel
But no.
replacement.
Don't include player goalies who only had one or two games. Like goalies who were the main goalie for the season. They
Aaron
lasted the full
Ramsdale.
season. Was
Not
absolutely not
Ramsdale.
the
No,
worst
no,
goalie
He's
for
the worst. Aaron Ramsdale is just screaming
uh,
everywhere.
Big Left.
no,
Please
no,
tell
no.
this
Come on,
guy
get out of here.
he's gonna.
Uh,
Pickford.
I
I mean,
actually
Aaron
Pickford. I
Ramsdale
think
barely
Onana
played
was
one
worse.
season, and he wasn't like super error prone, so he wasn't a great goalkeeper. But he was also
Exactly. I think
He
Onana was
cost
the
them the
worst.
league last year. You were the one screaming here. It's like, oh, he cost them the league. I told you can't do anything with Ramsdale. You were
Sure,
the
but
one
then
saying it.
at least was on. Like, listen, he had a terrible end that April last year. We're never going to talk about it, but with Onana, can you agree that Onana cost United the Champions League? Right?
He
There's
cost
no
United
yeah.
the
doubt.
Champions League, yes, but
And
in the recent 3 months, he's been stabilizing. He isn't as bad as Kepa. Kepa was just bad, 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 and there was no like limelight. You can argue that Onana today made the FA Cup final. Like you could
fair
make that
enough.
argument. In a good world when United didn't lose to 3-0 and went to 0-0 and then went to penalties. Onana is a savior because he takes a penalty. He saves a penalty.
Fair enough.
But yeah, Kepa
Kepa,
out of the two,
yeah.
Kepa's worst. He's
But in
he went
general,
he
Yeah,
he's the
went
for sure,
worst
he's the
he
worst.
went to Real Madrid to
and got
be
benched.
the first goalkeeper. And he got benched by their third goalkeeper. Like, come on, like and he cost 70 million, and he went to the league that he came from. So it's
Yeah,
not like he went to a new league.
it's
So
crazy.
Kepa by far.
Chelsea with their
Yo,
amazing signings, I have to say.
what's
They
our
just keep
take
on
on
giving.
Pickford? Because he's like sixth most expensive goalkeeper of all time, but I don't rate him particularly high. It's just
Ah,
his
I, I agree with you. I think he's
Yeah.
overrated. To be honest, I think he's very, very overrated. But Pickford does come up with these magical saves where he will keep you in games that don't deserve to be saved, and he does it. But I think he's middle tier. Honestly, I
I
think
think
Yeah.
Pickford.
from my perspective, Pickford, he's an old school goalkeeper. That's what he is.
Exactly. He's just old school.
He's like, put him in the Premier League from 2000 to 2012. He's gonna
Amazing.
be amazing number one goalkeeper that everyone wants. United probably buy him, but in the new modern way goalkeepers are, he's not a top goalkeeper. He's too chaotic. He's too out
Yeah.
there. He will provide you this amazing save, but then he'll give
Yep.
away a pass to Palmer, who's gonna chip you from
With the wrong foot.
with the wrong foot, and he's going to be like all in it. And he's probably the reason why England are not going to win it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I
Yeah,
think that's probably a good way to wrap up. Quite a few games upcoming, and we will see everybody next week.
Arsenal, Chelsea in the midweek. What do you have?
Arsenal.
Arsenal. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll see.
as long as Nico starts. I'm really hoping
Oh.
Nico Jackson starts.
All right. See
Bye
everyone next
bye.
week.
See everyone next week.